Welcome back, MTG Joe here. We're going to be touching base on a second version of the weekly meta breakdown. The Historic Qualifier Play-In, as well as the tournament, is, depending when you're watching this, today for the play-in, tomorrow for the event. I'm recording this on Thursday night. I tried to we were live for about 3 hours, testing out a bunch of different decks, ideally that weren't Boros Energy. Boros Energy is very consistent, very strong, so I'm going to preface with that. There's a lot of different versions of it. If I do end up playing, I'm deciding between playing the event and an RCQ. If I do end up playing, I will be playing Boros Energy. I think it is just by and far the most consistent. We tried a bunch of different things, just didn't work out. But I'm going to give you a bunch of different deck list ideas here, just kind of things people are trying, other content creators, stuff of that nature. So I'm not going to go as deep, I've been like 5 hours into content today. But I'm just going to cover the list. People were asking for some last minute additions or just things people were trying out. So the biggest thing with the metagame, Platinum to Mythic, 57% Boros Energy. 66% Boros Energy, also has the highest win rate. Going to Mythic rank only, 73% with a 76% win rate. This is meaning like, this includes mirror matches. So mirror matches normalizes the win rate to 50%. That is the most consistent thing. So it is something to be very mindful of. This is with people playing main deck Sun Cleanser, stuff of that nature. So it is very much an Johnny world. So there's I asked the guys at Untap to check out the bug because I can't look at Mythic players right now. I could do it for best of 1, but it's not very helpful here because we need to look at best of 3. So I'm going to cover it off. There's a couple different versions of Boros Energy to look at. Small sample size. This one's got a 100% win rate, but only 16 matches. I'm just going to kind of touch base on some of the innovation or things that are different between the lists. You can take a look, see what you want to kind of play, where you're at with the list itself. So the notable thing, Impetuous Lootmonger is a card that's seeing some play. Because the amulet's bad in the mirrors when everybody's on Sunforger, it's a little worse. I think this version, just not having Sunforger main, is a little bad. I also think at times Esper Sentinel can be a little problematic in the main board. Doesn't do much in the matchup itself. This sideboard is also all over the place. Like, you should be playing for Invasion of Gobakans over like Reprieves and Deafening Silence. That would be the first thing. Portable Hole's another card you want to look at. So while this one has the highest win rate, I think it's probably the worst built out of the ones we're going to be looking at. So the other version of the deck, when you'll see, this is from Dafor. We featured it in a video as well. So they're using Taii Wakim over the amulet slot. This version of the deck's also got 4 Sun Cleanser main. So Taii, how it works is whenever a source you control deals non-combat damage to a creature equal to that creature's toughness, you draw a card. So if your opponent's got a bunch of 1 toughness, you're bombarding them, you get to draw a card. You could basically scale Galvanic Discharge to draw a card. What I found with this card, when you're ahead, you have the bombardment going. This card's great. Draw a bunch of cards. What more can you want? Drawing multiples suck. There's no way to really loot it away in this particular build. And it doesn't do much if you're ahead, and it does nothing when you're behind. So I didn't love this version of the deck. I know it's working for some folks. I could see it as as a useful effect, but a little bit too much. Sideboard here, Invasions, I guess Sentinel for the more taxing matchups, Portable Holes, Surgical Extraction as a clean mana base. Then go to Nicktalk, Portuguese streamer, check them out on Twitch. They are 60 and 22 with a Phlage version of the list. They bounce between different versions of the deck. Phlage gives you a little bit more resiliency against a lot of the sweeper decks. In the mirror, it's a nice breaker as well. After playing with the Lootmonger, that card is nuts. I would play 4 of. Especially with Phlage, you can discard it, which is really nice. So you get some utility there. You're going to see with this one here, the Aether Hubs, because you want to cascade into these. Bunch of different removal options, 2 Sun Cleansers, Surgicals, Unlicensed Hearse. I would probably trim down the Unlicensed Hearse, be playing the full 4 Sun Cleanser. It's just a big mirror breaker that you're going to want in the matchups. And we've covered this in great detail. I have a bunch of different videos on the Boros decks. We've tried to feature a bunch of them as well, so you can see that. If you want to see this version, I have a video on it. If you want to see the other versions, got videos on that. the live video we just did. We played a couple different Boros ones towards the end as well, so you can check that out. So we got a Mardu Energy deck. So this vert list from Masked Marth went 98 and 38. I tried one game with it. I just got a really clunky draw, but I don't want to base it solely on that, just because the night was cursed for me on Arena. Just the most awkward things possible. The luckiest of luck for the opponent, the unluckiest of luck for me. I drew like 15 lands in my last game. I had the game ahead, just needed to draw something other than a land, and my deck was just like, how about lands? But this one here, what you're getting access to, so you still have the Guided Souls, Oscillates, Ajani's, Marionette Master, so it's kind of a sacrifice themed. Amped Raptor in here, Juggernaut Peddler's Thoughtseize effect, Galvanic, Fatal Push, and Deadly Dispute. The one thing I felt by playing these decks, the sacrifice to draw cards is meaningful. I don't like Deadly Dispute in the deck. I prefer like the Village Rate style effect, 1 mana. It's just easier on curve. You can Ajani and flip it on 3. It's just easier for your mana, all things considered. You don't have a lot of artifacts other than the artifacts it makes from the treasure, so you're not getting incidental value. The Nightmare is nice to loop the Ajani's, which plays nicely as well. Fragment, Static, you have Disruptor Flutes. The one thing here is there's no Sunforger, which you should, or Sun Cleanser. Play Sun Cleanser. You need it in the matchup. I also don't think you need Hearse and Assimilator necessarily. I would probably just play Surgical Extraction in lieu of it. The Legion's End, you could probably trim on a copy of that as well. I would just play the Sunforgers for sure in the sideboard. Then we have another Mardu deck. This one is 7749 by Metro. Similar ideas. This one is playing a little bit bigger. The modern decks are shifting to Mardu. They play the full set at Phlage usually. They will play Bowmaster. This version's on Sorin. Bowmaster's nerfed here, so it's not as good. They're also starting to try out copies of Omnixus for the control matchups, which is really nice. Single copy of Bombardment, single Nightmare. I kind of mixed into there. I would probably place 2 Sorins, and then I probably would either, like, I think you want more Bombardments, to be honest. I think that would be the key. It's such a big mirror breaker. It's a helpful card, but I'm just giving you ideas. You could kind of come together. There's a couple different iterations here, but we do see like the Sun Cleansers in the side. Kolaghan's Command's a nice card for kind of value mixed into there. A little bit higher line count because you're higher on 3 and 4 drops in this version. Abzan Yawgmoth. So I am not a great Yawgmoth player. I tried 3 matches with it today. It's not really my jam. I wasn't having fun playing it, and that kind of came in the way I was playing it. Wasn't playing too sharply. That said, it's a very powerful deck. The creator of this deck is Yawgmoth. Omnithopter has played a lot of it as well. Capella was like 159 and 15 at one point with variations of this deck. Consistently has finished in the top 10 Mythic with the deck in the past. So I trust his judgment with it. So he did a full write-up here that I'll link if you have any questions. Very, very detailed resource here that is very helpful. So you can kind of take a look at that. This one does have a good Boros matchup. It's a very tough deck to play, I would say, efficiently. You could play, like, I stumbled into wins, but also, like, I realized I was playing pretty poorly at other times. Mr. Yellowhat Gabriel Nassif has been trying out some control. Someone in my chat said they were playing this deck today too, and it was doing pretty well against Boros in the matches they played. Still a little small sample size, but some notable things with this. Instead of Divine Purge playing Temporary Lockdown, just getting rid of the permanents versus the Exile seems pretty useful. Boros usually, other than the Static Discharge, doesn't have a lot of ways to deal with it. You have your Phlages, a couple copies of Expressive, Aether Spike. So you still have your energy package, Prismatic Ending as removal, a whole bunch of removal options. One thing to be noted is Wrath the Skies you don't want to do for 3. Otherwise you'll blow up your lockdown, but just a bunch of removal options. The Fairy, Phlage as your win condition. Yeah, so you do want to be mindful of Surgical Extraction in the post board, but you have some cool additional win cons in Tajik, Wandering Emperor in the control mirrors, a bunch of counters, and then just a bunch of options there in your sideboard. So the deck that won a lot in best of one this weekend for the qualifier was the Persist Combo, and Yeffer JO3's 108 and 50 with it. So this is an infinite, or not an infinite, but pretty pseudo consistent turn 2 combo. But what you're trying to do is put into your graveyard a copy of Scholar of the Lost Troves, and then something like Emergent Ultimatum, Breach the Multiverse. You persist your Scholar, and then you just kind of keep churning through your deck, get free value. You can copy it with Glasspool Mimic, get more Scholars. So basically, you assemble a huge board, and then you take an extra turn with Alrund's Epiphany, kind of win that way there. You loot. You also have like the Mizzix's Mastery to target any of these effects from your graveyard. You can also just draw through your deck, play Jace, and win that way there. So interesting to see in the sideboard, Fragments, Orin's Chant to kind of silence your opponent, Surgical, Pithing Needle, just ways to kind of disrupt. Notably, not many ways to deal with. So Fragment Reality's the most common way to deal with some of the graveyard hate, but something like Rest in Peace, you're kind of relying on the Fragment, so it's interesting to kind of see it like that. Masker Worm also just like bullies the Boros decks, so interesting to see that. So all in kind of combo deck. And then we featured it last time, but there's a tournament over the weekend for Historic. It was won by Omri Thopter with a red-black Ajani sacrifice deck, basically just playing for white for Rite of Oblivion, Ajani main, and then Juggernaut Peddler on the side. There is a Jeskai Lotus field that you could take a look at. I personally think this is the worst of the control decks. It's great when you have Strict Proctor into Lotus, but other times you're just going to have really awkward mana. I think the normal Jeskai controls are a little bit better. We have energy-based versions of Yawgmoth you can take a look at. The Convoke version, I think this version is a little bit better. I do think Invert Polarity is a main board card. I think it's a sideboard card because it's a bit slow in the Boros matchups. But Dream Trawler One Ring action kind of mixed into there. A couple different variants of Jeskai control if you're interested. We tried a version of Abzan Prayers today, and it felt pretty awful. Into Sun Cleanser meta, you get Incidental Hate, so then you have to spend time trying to deal with that, and you just couldn't combo. And at the same time, you're slower than the Ajani decks and less consistent than the Boros decks, so you're getting Incidental Hate in playing a worse deck. So if you want to see it, we comboed off like turn 3 a couple times and won the game, but other times it was just like awkward kind of playing into it. So that is it for this. Good luck to all those playing. I'm going to try to play. If you have any questions, drop it in the comments. If there's anything between now and then that I find that's kind of cool, I'll put in the chat. But good luck to all those playing, and have a great one.